News with Michael Thompson.
Good evening and welcome to Nine's Late News. Your Facebook feed is about to look as it did before the social media giant's news ban. Those pages to be unblocked after a deal was cut with the federal government. Here's political reporter Emma LaRouche.
Michael, the federal government sees this as a big win, with the Treasurer declaring Facebook has refriended Australia. He says Facebook intends to restore Australian news pages in the coming days, and that this has come after some intense negotiations with the tech giant. The government now introducing more amendments to its media bargaining code, a proposed law requiring big tech companies to pay for news produced by Australian media organisations. Josh Frydenberg continues to insist the government will not back down on passing this legislation through Parliament this week, saying it was disappointed by Facebook's decision to block news content without any notice. In the past 2 days, the Treasurer has spoken 6 times with Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg to try and resolve the standoff. The relationship is still complicated, but for Australian Facebook users, it appears our feeds will soon return to normal.
Emma LaRouche reporting, and it's a busy news night in federal politics. The government has permanently increased the rate of unemployment benefits. On the same day, outspoken MP Craig Kelly turned his back on the Liberal Party, resigning and moving to the crossbench.
When troubles come, they come in legions.
Well, with a very heavy heart, I've resigned as a member of the Liberal Party.
Sydney MP Craig Kelly has dramatically quit the government in a week when the Prime Minister is also battling disturbing allegations from 4 women that an ex-Liberal staffer is a serial sex offender. But Scott Morrison is striking a defiant tone.
I want to assure all Australians that I can tell you nothing will distract me or my government from my pledge to them to save lives and save livelihoods.
The latest distraction says he will not interfere with government money bills or vote to bring it down.
I'll of course support the government on matters of supply, confidence and procedure.
But the numbers on all other votes now couldn't be tighter.
Can the Prime Minister confirm that today the government has lost its majority on the floor of the House of Representatives?
The status of the parties in the House is as a matter of common knowledge.
The government now has 76 members in a lower house of 151 MPs, but one is the Speaker, who only votes when the House is deadlocked. Craig Kelly lifts the crossbench numbers to 7, and if they vote with Labor's 68 MPs, the numbers are tied at 75 each.
I've been subject to a slander and smear campaign.
Craig Kelly was recently censured by the Prime Minister for undermining confidence in the vaccine rollout.
What do you say to your colleagues who say that you are selfish, you are self-centred, you are doing this only for you?
I'm doing this because I believe we can save lives.
The latest drama came on a day when the government moved to permanently increase the rate of unemployment benefits.
We need to ensure that we have a system that is fair and sustainable for the people who need it and the taxpayers who pay for it.
The job seeker base rate will rise by just over $50 a fortnight to $620.80. The parenting payment and youth allowance will get similar boosts.
This is the single biggest increase in unemployment benefits since 1986.
All benefits will fall by $150 a fortnight at the end of March when the emergency COVID supplements are withdrawn. So the permanent increase of $4 a day is being dismissed by some as an insult.
A heartless betrayal of the millions of people who have been hit by unemployment.
We're a great nation, but this is such a dumb thing to do, to treat the poorest of the poor this way.
The Prime Minister says his only focus is on getting the unemployed back to work, but he has a few other things on his mind. Chris Ullman, 9 News.
It's early days, but with the vaccine hitting even more arms and a second Pfizer delivery arriving on our shores, a conversation around international travel is already set to be struck up at the next National Cabinet. The New South Wales Premier is leading the charge, saying now is the time to start planning for overseas flights, given all Australians should have access to a jab by October. Let's go straight to reporter Bill Hogan in Sydney. Bill, what could post-COVID travel look like?
Well, Michael, if Gladys Berejiklian has it her way, it'll be Jacinta Ardern returning the favour and allowing quarantine-free travel to New Zealand with New South Wales. And and until then, it would be simply monitoring how nations, adapt to the rollout of the vaccination program, as well as aviation policies before we start to decide on who we will allow in. But for Australians that are considering avoiding the jab, the New South Wales Premier had a strong message to them today saying, think twice, as this could make your life and travel a whole lot easier and safer.
Bill, thank you. Victorians are edging closer to freedom tonight, on track to return to COVID-safe summer rules as early as Friday. Authorities are waiting for the last close contacts of the Holiday Inn cluster to end their incubation period before pulling the trigger. Reporter Mark Santamartino is standing by with the latest developments. Mark, what does the rollback depend on?
Michael, it's a line we've heard many times before, but it will all depend on the data. That being said, after 4 straight days of 0 cases, things are looking good for Victorians, and Premier Daniel Andrews all but confirmed today that if those numbers continue come Friday midnight, he will be able to return the state to our COVID-safe summer restrictions. Now, what those are is really up for debate, as we've had a number of changes to them thanks to the BlackRock as well as the Holiday Inn clusters. But pre-New Year's Eve, we were allowed up to 30 people in our homes. That's currently just sitting at 5. We didn't have to wear masks on anything but public transport, in rideshare vehicles or in busy shopping areas like supermarkets. Right now, they're mandatory everywhere, that is indoors. And of course, the state was on track to welcoming up to 75% of workers back into busy offices around the city, which is something that the Lord Mayor Sally Capp has long been campaigning for, to try and boost the CBD economy. Now, whether we get all of those things on Friday remains to be seen. Keep in mind that Friday midnight is 14 days since that snap 5-day lockdown began, and back then we were only allowed to have up to 15 people in our homes. So what we get is really up for debate tonight.
We'll have to wait and see. Mark, thank you. After commemorations were moved to driveways last year, we have a clearer picture tonight of how Anzac Day will be commemorated across the country. The RSL has limited the annual march in Sydney CBD to 500, but Gladys Berejiklian says if they ask for a bigger crowd, it will be considered, while ceremonies will go ahead as normal in Queensland on April 25. Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk imploring for people to turn out in full force. To reporter Sally Guide in Brisbane. Sally, just how normal Anzac Day services look there this year?
Well, as normal as you could possibly hope for, Michael, and it's a far cry from the driveway services we saw last year. Queenslanders in candles lining the streets to commemorate Anzac Day, social distancing on driveways for dawn services. Instead, this year we'll be seeing large events with large gatherings of people at our parades, dawn services, marches and commemorations right across the state. Indoor events will be subjected to some COVID-19 restrictions. However, large outdoor events will be mask-free. As for the details around those commemorations, they're still being finalised, but Michael, I can tell you tonight there are some very happy and hopeful Queenslanders and veterans here this evening. I'm sure there are. Sally, thank you. 2 men have been killed in a New South Wales level crossing accident west of Young. Their truck was hit by a train at Quindelia, catching a line as it was pushed down the track. No one on the train was hurt in the incident. South Australian police are tonight closing in on a driver of a Commodore allegedly responsible for a high-speed pursuit in Adelaide's south, which ended in a crash. He fled the scene, leaving his own passenger behind injured and an innocent driver in another car in hospital. Kate Lamb joins us now from Adelaide Police HQ. Kate, do police have any idea as to why the driver might have fled?
Well, Michael, while the Commodore he was driving wasn't stolen, police certainly found a number of concerning items inside that vehicle, including what appears to be a bag of white powder, a balaclava, several knives and wads of cash. Now, it was just after 6 this morning when an innocent driver was hit by the Commodore at Door Park in Adelaide, just south of Adelaide, ripping the car apart on impact. Witnesses say that the wanted driver was travelling at speeds of up to 160 kilometres an hour without headlights on and was escaping police. When the crash happened, leaving 2 people injured, including one of his passengers. Now, dog patrols launched into action to try and find the suspect who fled on foot, but Michael, tonight he remains on the run.
Kate, hopefully they get a breakthrough soon. Investigators are tonight working to establish how a cargo train came to crash into an iron ore truck in WA. Two train drivers, both aged 70, were the only people on board at the time of the collision near Kalgoorlie. As we go to air tonight, one of those drivers is clinging to life. Live to reporter Lucy McLeod in Perth. And Lucy, have investigations turned up any answers?
Well, Michael, Major Crash is still investigating, so it is too early to say exactly how this happened, but we do know the lights at the level crossing were working at the time of the collision. For now, though, the focus is on the health of the two 70-year-old train drivers who were so badly injured they were flown here to Royal Perth Hospital. One is fighting for life in the intensive care unit. The other is stable in the State Trauma Centre. But the 43-year-old MLC truck driver was carting 3 trailers of gold ore when he drove in to the path of the Horizon locomotive yesterday afternoon. Now, he walked away with minor injuries, but this incident, Michael, has reignited calls from the union to reduce the size of road trains here in WA on our regional roads.
Lucy, thank you. You're with Nine's late news seen right across Australia. Among the stories ahead tonight, why Australian researchers believe playing chess is a good move for the development of young children.
Nine's Late News brought to you by HIF, your health's best friend for over 65 years.
If you see something,
Help! Give me that ball. Big on the hook.
Something amazing, become a 9 News source.
It's so big he's swallowing it. Oh, the whole thing's gone down his gob.
Shoot it, send it, see it on 9 News Darwin.
The Beds Are Us Aussie-made price blitz is on. This Sleepmaker Miracoil Hillier queen size just $9.99. Huge range of sleepy head mattresses and adjustable beds. All on sale now. Beds Are Us, the home of Australian-made mattresses.
BTC Parts and Accessories. You'll be surprised at our massive range of stock. So much more for the boat, trailer and caravan at BTC Parts and Accessories. Open 7 days. Corner of Stewart Highway and McKinnon Road, Pinelands.
Introducing Macca's new fruit smoothies with no added sugar and protein options. And new salads with 100% Aussie RSPCA approved chicken breast. Or try the new chicken wraps in honey soy or aioli flavours. All prepared to order. There's more to love at Macca's.
Daniel Andrews says he's prepared to tear up Crown's licence if that's what the new Royal Commission recommends. But the opposition has taken aim at the Premier, saying it's taken too long to act.
The Premier laid out how much is on the table with the Royal Commission into Crown.
It's an entire precinct that is the biggest single-site employer in the state, but it has to be run to the highest of standards, and not just through what's been found, but what's been admitted. You couldn't say that.
In the terms of reference to the Finkelstein inquiry, the central question, whether it is in the public interest for Crown Melbourne to continue to hold the casino licence in Victoria. Given Crown was found unfit to do so by a New South Wales inquiry, sparked by damning allegations on 60 Minutes, the opposition asked why the Premier has taken so long to act.
This has been going on for 18 months, and for Daniel Andrews to wait until now to call the Royal Commission just shows you he's got no interest in finding out the truth.
Mr Andrews is warning Crown's casino licence is on the line.
I'm not foreshadowing that they're losing it, and I'm also not foreshadowing that they get to keep it. That is an open question. That's why we've got this process.
Shortly after the Victorian inquiry was announced, Harold Mitchell became the latest Crown board member to resign.
This is a self-induced problem.
Former Premier Jeff Kennett says the Crown board has no one else to blame for its predicament. And Executive Chair Helen Coonan should also prepare to go.
She's got to stay on in the short term, but she has disqualified herself because she's been on the board for 11 years.
And while he supports the Crown Royal Commission, he's lashed the Premier for not doing the same over hotel quarantine.
The standards of governance in this state are so low, they make a snake's addendum look to be a high-profile act.
Brett McLeod, 9 News.
A board game dating back 1,500 years is being credited with increasing the mind skills of young Australian children. Melbourne researchers finding children who learn to play chess develop better problem-solving, decision-making and creative thinking.
9-year-old Aiden has been playing chess since he was 5. What does it take to be a good chess player?
Thinking ahead.
Right now, the game's enjoying peak popularity with Queen's Gambit, the story of a female chess prodigy, one of the most watched shows on Netflix.
Chess isn't always competitive. Chess can also be beautiful.
A long way from Hollywood, Professor Asad Islam has done the research. For children, he says, the game can be life-changing.
What we find immediately that their math ability improves and they are able to think rationally.
He spent 4 weeks in rural Bangladesh studying the impact learning chess had on 400 young students who'd never seen or heard of the game. The most surprising finding? It improved their risk-taking ability.
Because it involves sacrificing something now to gain something in future. So sometimes it involves risk.
And it seems more and more schools are now introducing chess programs. Here at Templestowe Heights Primary, the children are having lessons for the very first time.
I haven't played before, so I'm a bit nervous but mostly excited.
I definitely think it's about the transferable skills, allowing children to learn skills in a chess situation and be able to transfer them to other subjects in the classroom.
And of course, there's nothing wrong with a bit of healthy competition. What's your goal with chess?
To be able to beat my grandfather. Checkmate.
Justine Conway, 9 News.
Stay with us next tonight. Your ticket to ride, the document you'll need for post-COVID travel, and emotional ceremonies in the US as the nation's pandemic death toll passes 500,000.
Different worlds collide.
I'm a Kmart shopper and he looks like a Rolex shopper.
New Married, tomorrow, 7:30.
Many Australians have their eyes closed when it comes to elder abuse. But if we open our eyes, we can see it.
He said, Mum, I'll get the money for you.
And then I got a call from the bank manager.
I never expected this from my daughter.
If I don't change my will, I can't see the grandkids again.
For free confidential support, call 1-800-ELDER-HELP. That's 1-800-353-374.
The Beds R Us Aussie-made price blitz is on. This Sleepmaker Miracoil Hillier queen size just $9.99. Huge range of sleepyhead mattresses and adjustable beds. All on sale now. Beds R Us, the home of Australian-made mattresses.
Keep all your property clean and weed-free with help from HD Pumps. We supply and service market-leading quick spray and cropland spray equipment and bar pressure cleaners, offering superior reliability to get the job done right. HD Pumps, making water work.
President Joe Biden has led America to mark another grim COVID milestone. The virus now claiming more than 500,000 US lives.
On the White House steps, a solemn scene. A moment's silence and a prayer. "500 candles burning brightly, honouring 500,000 lives lost.
There's nothing ordinary about them. The people we lost were extraordinary.
With flags at half-mast and the bells tolling at Washington's National Cathedral. An emotional President Biden spoke candidly about grief.
The small things, the tiny things that you miss the most. That scent when you open the closet. That park you go by that you used to stroll in. They're never truly gone. They'll always be part of your heart.
A nation mourning so many who should still be here.
We've done worse than most any other country, and we're a highly developed, rich country.
Capitol Hill also fell silent, lawmakers marking a milestone which has broken families and scuttled the economy. The president hoping his COVID recovery bill will pass later this week. And while COVID cases and hospitalisations are declining across the states, a warning it's too soon to relax.
This thing could bounce back with the variants very, very quickly.
The new administration is on track to hit its goal, 100 million vaccinations by the end of April. with an average of 1.7 million shots going into arms every day.
There is light in the darkness. We will get through this, I promise you.
In the United States, Amelia Adams, 9 News.
Back home now, and Australians wanting to travel overseas in future are likely to have to prove they've had a COVID jab. That means you'll have to ensure you have a copy of a vaccination certificate. Reporter Fiona Willan explains how you get one.
Once you get a COVID-19 jab, you can access your vaccination certificate in 4 ways. Through the vaccine provider, the Express Plus Medicare app, by contacting Services Australia, or by logging into your MyGov account and visiting Medicare, where you'll find it on the Australian Immunisation Registry. And to make that process more secure, the government has now linked MyGov to the nation's digital ID system, MyGov ID.
And of course, the vaccination certificate that will be available for Australians will be available through MyGov, and digital identity is the safest, easiest way to access MyGov.
The digital ID isn't just for downloading your vaccination certificate. It can currently be used to access 75 government services online, and the plan is to expand it to the private sector so that you can use it to check your bank details or your electricity bill. It replaces the traditional 100-point ID check that you'd usually do at a bank or Australia Post.
Well, if you want a quick, simple interaction with a government service, you can use your digital ID rather than presenting physical ID.
2 million Australians have signed up for a digital identity, and the government wants more people to do it as the vaccination program ramps up to ensure your details are more secure and you're the only person who can access your certificate.
When we come back, Chris and Scott with our finance wrap and all tomorrow's weather details.
Sunday is a ticking blockbuster. The royal princess,
I'm a hostage.
trapped in her father's palace hell.
They stepped on my head.
She's alive,
The situation is getting more desperate.
but how long can she survive?
I just want to be free.
And Brittany, superstar slave, imprisoned by her dad, right before the world's eyes.
I'm embarrassed. Can we?
60 Minutes, Blockbuster Sunday on 9.
Want to know where to go? Pick up a free Outback Exposure Map. It'll tell you where to go, how to get there, what to do and see, where to eat, and even where to swim. The Outback Exposure Map tells you where to go. So get going.
Sell your home the Watts way. I'm Simon Watts from Real Estate Central. List with me prior to June 30 and I will sell your home within 5 weeks. The first open for inspection, or I will refund you 100% of all of your marketing costs.
The new Ford Puma doesn't need a Hollywood-level production. It doesn't need slow motion or an unrealistically good-looking couple. It doesn't need a world-renowned music track or an expensive camera or even a fancy voiceover.
Excuse me. The all-new Ford Puma, starting from only $31,490 drive away.
To finance now, the share market has moved higher. The All Ords up 49.2 points. With the details, business reporter Chris Kohler.
Travel companies took off on all the talk of easing restrictions and vaccine rollouts today. Qantas and Sydney Airport both surged as the market lifted. And then there was Bank of Queensland. Shareholders will be doing cartwheels after a 13% jump today. It's hoping to compete with bigger banks by taking over rival MeBank. In the losers column, there were tech companies today. Microsoft and Apple both down on Wall Street, and our tech stocks, like Afterpay, fell sharply too. The Australian dollar touched a 3-year high before backing off. It now seems to have 80 US cents set in its sights. For now, it's at 79.2 US cents, 65 euro cents, and 56.2 British pence.
Thanks, Chris. Let's go behind those numbers now with Scott Phillips from Motley Fool. Scott, good evening to you. Now, the mega miners behind the move higher today, BHP in particular.
Tomo, good evening. They certainly were. Shares up more than 3%, which is saying something for the business size of BHP. And it's all down, or largely down to iron ore prices that continue to defy gravity, making a pretty fortune for all the big iron ore miners.
Now, Scott, I know a lot of people are asking this question. Is there anything on the horizon that mining investors need to be wary of, or is this move higher likely to continue?
That's a really good question, Tomo. I think, look, the timing is uncertain. What we know for sure is the miners are making an absolute fortune. The gross margins are close to software margins of 80 or 90%. Now, that's normally not sustainable for commodities. So the big watch out is if and when supply catches up with that runaway demand. If it does, we will see prices fall and that'll drag share prices down. Of course, whether or when it does is anyone's guess.
Now, rising commodity prices are having a positive impact on the Australian dollar, but it's a fine balancing act, isn't it, when it comes to what's best for our economy as a whole?
Yeah, this is a really, really tough one. So, of course, look, the rising dollar is great for iron ore prices and great for the government budget, for example. But when it comes down to the Australian dollar, it's the story of exporters really struggling when the dollar goes up. But imports and importers doing well. That means as tourists, for example, we go overseas if and when, and you've already been reporting on that this evening, that'll be good news for us. It means we buy more American dollars, for example. But of course, it's bad news for our exporters of both primary goods and manufactured goods who are simply having to compete harder against US and other exports for the same price.
Right, OK. So now some key economic indicators out tomorrow. December figures on wages and construction. What's the market expecting?
Yeah, these are moderate increases expected of 1 and 1.1%, so reasonably small numbers. These are quarterly numbers, of course. That's a pretty good result, though. That's an annualised number of about 3 or 4% for both wages and construction. That's more of a steady as she goes, keep on building back to this recovery story. Of course, the construction number in particular tends to be very, very volatile. So while that's the expectation, we'll wait and see the numbers when they hit tomorrow.
And Scott, how's Wall Street looking?
Wall Street's interesting. So at the moment, it's down. The S&P down 0.4%. The big watch out, you mentioned, Chris mentioned Microsoft and Apple. The US NASDAQ futures are down 1.4% at the moment. It might be another tough night for tech stocks overnight and possibly again for tech stocks here on the ASX when the market opens tomorrow.
Scott Phillips, as always, thank you. Now, before we go, a quick check of the capital city forecast and a showery Wednesday for Brisbane with a top temperature of 29. A few showers for Sydney, 25. Canberra, partly cloudy, 21, partly cloudy 2 for Melbourne, 20, and also for Hobart, they're a top of 22. Adelaide, mostly sunny, 23, Perth, sunny, 32, and Darwin, showers, a possible storm, and a top of 29 degrees. That is Nine's late news for this Tuesday. Our next bulletin is at 5 a.m, followed by the Today Show with Carl and Sylvia Jeffries. Thanks for your company. I'm Michael Thompson. Good night.
In New York City.